So, a lot of us in this lifetime are actively, intentionally doing trauma work. We are aware of our trauma. And if we're not aware, then we're actively working to become more aware in all of the ways. And so we're familiar with words like triggers. We are probably familiar with what our triggers are. Those are the things that remind us of our trauma. And then we react to that as if we are there. And I have discovered that there is something that exists that is greater than a trigger. And I call it a trauma flare. So it's like a trigger in a panic attack had a baby, and then that baby was tossed in a volcano and then it exploded out. So it's like you are triggered, and then it's a massive explosion of too much, too fast within the body, which is essentially what a trigger does, right? But this is a larger explosion within the body. It's a larger reaction. It causes panic attacks. We have the difficulty breathing, the tightness in the chest, the heaviness on the chest, stomach aches because our body is flooded with energy, with emotion, and the stomach area, the solar plexus, where we digest our food, is also where we digest emotion. And so we're flooded with all of this emotion, which is energy, and our bodies cannot process it fast enough. Because again, it's too much, it's too fast. So we can experience nausea, bloating, stomach aches, all of that stuff. We can experience headaches, fatigue, a state of being frozen, the inability to quite literally move, shaking, tremors. We can experience tremors in the body, which is actually a natural response that we have when our body is overloaded, when we're in a traumatic experience, because a trauma flare is traumatic in and of itself. And so our body naturally goes into a place of tremoring to remove the overload of energy. So that's a natural process that your body has. And often we want to stop that. We want to restrict it. And it's actually a way that your body is releasing some of that emotion. So if you're moving through your trauma, if you're moving through healing and you've understood your triggers, like I have for a very, very long time, and then all of a sudden you find yourself in a place of, wow, my triggers are feeling larger, they're feeling different. It's a trauma flare. So it's compounded trauma, it's chronic trauma. Stress is traumatic, and the past couple of years have been massively stressful for all of us. And so this ongoing stress, which is trauma, so ongoing trauma, then anything else, any of the other traumas that we've experienced or are currently experience become compounded and chronic. And then we start having trauma flares. So it's essentially like the trauma has never stopped. And we can have moments within our timeline that in those trauma flares explode out. So being aware of what is happening, having a plan. So being aware of what you need in those moments. So when I have a trauma flare, I often am frozen. I cannot move. I tremor. So if someone starts asking me, hey, what do you need? What do you need? That just adds to the overwhelm that I'm already experiencing within my body. So I need, massage, firm pressure, because I dissociate also in those moments. I can feel myself leave my body. So firm pressure can be helpful to me because it brings me back into my physical body, which helps me feel grounded instead of, because, when we've experienced trauma, it's been too much. And so we've often torn ourselves away to go outside of ourselves to be able to survive that trauma. So when we have a trauma flare, that literally can happen again. If you can, bring your awareness just to breathing. And if you can take a deep breath, but sometimes that's too much. So if you can just use your breath as a focal point, that in and out, until you begin to settle, begin to calm, that can be helpful. So becoming aware of what am I able to do in those moments, what is helpful, and becoming aware of what you are unable to do in those moments. And if you need to, write it down. Be very familiar with that. You know, your loved ones that could be with you in one of those moments, make them aware as well. And when you come out of a trauma flare, self-care, aftercare is extremely important. It can take days to recalibrate your system back to, a balanced place of being. And if you are in high stress, active trauma in any way, then the recalibration of your system is challenging. I'm not going to say impossible, because nothing is impossible, but as long as we are in active stress and trauma, our body is going to be living to some degree in that place. So the aftercare, the self-care, is getting yourself back to, as much as possible, a grounded, centered, calm place of being. And that takes intention and work. So for me, I build everything around the word cozy. So warmth, coziness, what is soft and nurturing to me. So warm showers, warm baths. You're probably going to be experiencing fatigue, and my body hurts. So aches and pains, stomach ache, bloating, headache, fatigue, all of these things are normal. So you're going to treat them as you would if you were sick. So warm drinks, hot tea, lots of water to flush out your system, warm baths, warm showers. I have a heated blanket, I have a heated pillow, I have super thick, cozy socks. All of those things help. When you're able, writing, a creative outlet is necessary to also express, identify, accept, honor all of the traumas, the feelings, everything that you just went through. So it's a multi-step process, and becoming as familiar with it as you can is really important. But during getting familiar with, okay, this is what is happening, what am I capable and incapable of doing in this moment? How can others offer me support if they can? And then aftercare, self-care, what do I need? What are the things that help me offer myself some grace to balance after, because like I said, a trauma flare is traumatic in and of itself. Trauma is anything that happens that causes a too much, too fast within us. And so a trauma flare does exactly that. And so treating yourself as if you have just come out of a traumatic event, which you have, it is an assault to the system. And so becoming familiar with your process, becoming familiar with your aftercare, and giving yourself permission to really slow down. It takes me days to come out of a trauma flare. So really giving myself permission to slow down, to really offer myself the comfort, the nutrition, the nourishment in all of the ways that I need. Because we're battling a society that tells us doing is better than being, and more is better than less. And so resting, taking care of ourselves is very frequently conditioned within us, and we're at the bottom of the list. So really being mindful of it's okay to rest and giving yourself permission to care for yourself. And then, working to, as much as you possibly can, diminish, eliminate, replace stressors in your life. So again, don't hide from them, become familiar with them. Really become aware of your surroundings, internal and external, and what is it that you can do to create a calmer, more nourishing environment for yourself. It is possible.